The morning sun clawed its way over the jagged horizon, spilling pale gold across the uneven plains. Dust hung in the air, stirred by a weak wind, curling in lazy spirals around the cowboy's boots as he moved. 30 years had carved hard lines into his face, and his eyes, steel-gray watchful, scanned the terrain like a hawk. Every movement, every sound could be danger here. He spotted her before she saw him, a young Apache woman, barely 23, her dark hair caught in the brambles, one leg trapped in a crude steel bear trap. She struggled, panic rippling through her, the sharp metal biting into her calf. Her lips parted in a small, choked scream, and the wind carried it just enough for him to catch it. Without hesitation, he sprinted across the dry earth. The ground cracked beneath his boots, the air sharp with the smell of sagebrush and sweat. He had faced rattlers, rogue men, and freezing nights, but something about this, seeing her caught like that, made his stomach tighten. "Hold still," he barked, voice low but commanding, as he dropped beside her. She froze, eyes wide, chest heaving. "I can't," she stammered, her voice trembling but defiant. "It'll tear my leg off." He worked quickly, prying the trap's jaws apart with a wrench he pulled from his satchel. Sparks flew where metal scraped metal, and she hissed, gritting her teeth against the pain. "Almost there," he muttered, and with one final heave, the trap released its cruel grip. She collapsed backward, gasping, tears streaking dirt across her face. "You're hurt," he said, eyes scanning her leg. A red line ran across her calf. It wasn't deep, but would sting and bruise. I'm fine," she replied, sitting up slowly, dignity battling with pain. Her gaze was steady, defiant, but there was an undercurrent of gratitude she didn't fully reveal. He extended a hand. "Can you walk?" She studied him for a long moment, then nodded, allowing him to help her up. Her movements were careful, deliberate, each step a quiet triumph against the trap's bite. As they moved away from the trap, he noticed a tension in her shoulders, the way her hands clenched and unclenched. She was proud, strong, unwilling to show weakness, qualities he respected instantly. The plains around them were quiet, but not safe. Wolves had been seen recently, and the wind carried the faint smell of smoke from a distant settlement. They had no time to linger. By noon, the sun had climbed high, relentless. The cowboy had fashioned a rough splint for her leg from a branch and some strips of cloth torn from his shirt. She walked with a cautious limp, the trust between them unspoken but forming with every careful step. "Name's Cole," he said, breaking the silence. "Cole Brennan." "You?" She hesitated. "Ayoka," she finally said, her voice soft but steady. "You saved my life." "Just doing what needed doing," he replied, shrugging, though the tension in his shoulders betrayed a flicker of pride. They moved through the plains, the silence between them stretched thin by the rustle of wind in the grass, and the distant cry of a hawk circling overhead. Ayoka glanced at him occasionally, her dark eyes curious but wary. "You're far from home," she said after a while, her voice almost a whisper, eyes on the horizon. "I go where I need to," he replied. "Sometimes that's trouble. Sometimes it's saving someone like you." His voice held no false bravado. It was simple, honest, earned by years in the wild. Ayoka's gaze dropped. "My father, he will not forgive this. If he finds out..." Her voice trailed off, the implication heavy. Cole's jaw tightened. "We'll worry about that later. Right now, we move, or something else will find us first." The landscape shifted as they walked, rolling plains giving way to a sparse line of mesquite trees. The sun beat down, the air dry and heavy. The horse he had ridden earlier grazed nearby, a silent witness to their fragile alliance. A sudden rustle in the grass made them both freeze. Cole's hand dropped to the rifle at his hip. Ayoka's hand went instinctively to a hidden knife at her waist. The tension was instantaneous, electrifying. A coyote emerged, eyes glinting, then paused. Sizing them up, it snarled, teeth bared. The standoff lasted only seconds before Cole raised a hand. "Easy," he muttered. The coyote retreated, fading into the horizon, leaving the dust swirling in its wake. Ayoka exhaled, a laugh that was more relief than humor. "I did not expect your world to be so unforgiving." Cole looked at her, noting the resilience behind her words. Neither did I, he admitted. But you're tougher than you look. For a brief moment, the tension eased, though the shadow of the chief's likely wrath loomed over them both. Each step forward was a step into unknown danger, wild, human, and moral. As dusk settled, painting the sky in soft blues and grays, they reached the outskirts of the Apache village. Cole's muscles tightened at the sight. The wooden huts, the quiet buzz of life winding down for nightfall, and the watchful eyes of villagers. Ayoka's step slowed, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. "Stay behind me," Cole murmured. She obeyed, trusting him instinctively. A figure emerged from one of the huts, a tall, imposing man, broad-shouldered, with eyes that seemed to weigh both intention and sin. Chief Dakota, Ayoka's father, age 48. His hair streaked with gray, but his presence commanding. His gaze fell on Cole, unflinching, piercing. "You," the chief said, voice like a whip cracking. "Why is my daughter with you?" Cole met the gaze without flinching. "She was trapped," he said simply. "I saved her life. Nothing more." The chief's eyes narrowed. "Life debt," he said, tone final. "In my tribe, this is a price. You will marry her." Ayoka's eyes widened, disbelief and fear swirling. "Father." "No," the chief interrupted, firm, unyielding. "It is decided." Cole felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He could refuse, walk away, but the consequences for Ayoka would be dire. Rage, fear, and moral responsibility collided in his chest. I will not force her," Cole said finally. His voice was calm, but every muscle in his body tensed. "If this is to happen, it must be her choice." The chief's gaze softened slightly, assessing the truth in Cole's words. Ayoka stepped forward, fear battling defiance in her eyes. I will decide," she said quietly, voice steadying as courage sparked. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. The first ember of mutual respect, wariness, and the fragile beginning of understanding. The village was quiet, the sun setting behind distant hills. Tension hung thick in the air, the kind that promised storms, both literal and emotional. Cole knew the path ahead was dangerous, uncertain, and impossible to predict. And yet, somewhere beneath the fear and suspicion, a bond had begun to form. The wind swept through the village, carrying dust, smoke, and the faint scent of pine. The first chapter of their journey had ended, but the real story, the trials, the choices, the dangers, and perhaps the beginning of trust, was just beginning. The first light of dawn crept through the gaps in the wooden huts, brushing the plains with cold gold. Cole tightened the straps of his saddle, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavier than his rifle. Ayoka rode beside him on a borrowed horse, her dark hair falling in a loose braid over her shoulder, the splint on her leg hidden beneath her worn skirt. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned every ridge, every shadow. "Are we safe?" she asked softly, voice barely above the whisper wind. Cole shook his head. "Not for long. We move fast, or we risk more than just wolves." His gaze darted to the horizon, where the sun burned away the morning mist to reveal the jagged trail ahead. The trail was narrow, cutting through rocky outcrops and thorny brush. One misstep, and it could mean a broken leg, or worse. Cole led, knowing her injury made every obstacle more dangerous. But he noticed how she rode, how she adjusted her weight, how her fingers tightened around the reins. Resilient, unbroken. "You're strong," he said without turning. Most would have given up by now. She glanced at him, a hint of surprise in her dark eyes. Strength isn't always about muscles. Sometimes it's survival. They rode in silence, each moment punctuated by the crunch of hooves on dry soil. Then came the sound, faint, almost imperceptible. Voices. Men. Outsiders, judging by their laughter and the rattling of spurs. Cole motioned for her to dismount and crouch behind a large boulder. "Stay low. Let me check." Peering around the edge, he counted 4 men approaching, guns slung casually but with practiced ease. Bandits, likely looking for easy prey, or strays daring to cross the plains. He returned to Ayoka. "We can't outrun them on this trail. We'll need to fight or trick them." Her eyes widened slightly, but the fire in them did not falter. "Then we fight." Cole nodded, respect for her courage surging. He checked his rifle, found it loaded, and whispered, "Follow my lead." We moved together. The men drew nearer, unaware of the ambush awaiting them. Cole waited for the right moment, listening to the wind, reading the terrain, anticipating their movements. When the first man stepped into the clearing, Cole's rifle barked, a precise, deliberate shot that sent the bandits sprawling. The others ducked, drawing their pistols, but Cole's aim was steady, his presence commanding. Ayoka moved with unexpected agility, using a branch to trip on the bandits, her leg injury forgotten in the adrenaline of survival. The fight was brief, brutal, and chaotic. Dust swirled around the clearing as Cole disarmed the last man, forcing him to flee. Breathing heavily, Cole turned to her. "You've got guts, Ayoka. Not many would have done what you just did." She nodded, grim but proud. "I've had to survive my whole life. Today isn't different." They mounted again, riding quickly before more trouble arrived. The plain stretched endlessly before them, both a sanctuary and a danger, a test of skill, courage, and trust. The river appeared in the distance, a silver ribbon cutting through the parched land. Cole dismounted, lifting Ayoka gently from her horse. "We have to cross here," he said, scanning the shallow but rushing waters. "Careful. One misstep, and the current takes you." She flexed her fingers around the straps of her saddle. "I can do it," she said, her voice steady, but the faint tremor betrayed nerves. Cole nodded, leading the way. The river was deceptively strong, rushing over rocks and undercut banks. He took the first step, boots sinking into wet sand. Water rushed past, icy, biting at his skin. He extended a hand to Ayoka. "Trust me," he said, her dark eyes locked on his, a mixture of fear and determination. "I do." Step by step they crossed. The current tugged at her, but Cole's steady grip and guiding words kept her upright. Halfway across, a sudden slip. Her foot caught on a submerged stone. Cole grabbed her arm, yanking her back into balance. Their bodies nearly collided, hearts racing, adrenaline sharp as knives. "Easy now," he whispered, letting her regain footing. She exhaled, her chest rising and falling with rapid breaths, yet a small smile flickered on her face. On the far bank, they paused, dripping in cold but triumphant. The river behind them roared, a reminder of nature's indifferent cruelty. Ayoka looked at Cole, admiration clear her gaze. "You're brave," she said softly. He shrugged, modest. "Bravery doesn't mean you aren't scared. It means you keep going anyway." They mounted again, the sun climbing higher, the plain stretching into uncertain futures. But each step, each challenge had bound them closer, two strangers forced into trust by survival, danger, and circumstance. Evening fell in muted shades, the sun a faint glow behind distant mesas. Cole and Ayoka approached the village cautiously, hearts still racing from the river crossing and bandit encounter. The tension in the air was thick, carrying the scent of wood smoke and the faint trace of fear. Chief Dakota was waiting, arms crossed, shadowed by the fading light. His gaze pierced them, calculating, evaluating the result of yesterday's rescue. "You returned," he said, voice low and dangerous. "You chose the trail, the river, the risks. Now, you must answer for the choices made." Cole met the chief's stare. "We survived the trail, Chief. Your daughter is safe." The chief's eyes narrowed. "Safe? And yet you brought her back with knowledge of the plains, her strength tested, her life at your mercy. Do you think I would ignore this?" Ayoka stepped forward, voice firm. "Father, he saved my life. I am not a child to command." The chief's expression softened briefly, but authority reasserted itself quickly. "Life debt cannot be ignored, Ayoka. Cole, understand this. In my tribe, a debt of life carries weight. You will honor it. You will marry her. This is a law of respect." Cole's jaw tightened. "I cannot force her. If this is to happen, it must be her choice." Ayoka's eyes met Cole's. For the first time, their bond was solidified, not by fear or obligation, but by shared danger, respect, and the understanding of each other's courage. The chief's hand hovered near his belt, a silent reminder of potential violence. But he stepped back, acknowledging the truth in their unity. The night air hummed with tension, the first stars flickering above. The village, the river, the plains, all bore witness to this fragile alliance. Cole realized the journey ahead would test more than courage or skill. It would test trust, honor, and the limits of two very different worlds colliding. And as the shadows lengthened, he knew that the story of survival, respect, and perhaps love had only begun. Night had fallen over the plains, a dark velvet punctuated only by a crescent moon and the occasional flicker of a distant campfire. The air smelled of dust, smoke, and the faint tang of sweat. Cole's eyes, steel gray and alert, scanned the perimeter of the Apache village. Every shadow a potential threat. The events of the past days, the bear trap, the river, the bandits, had forged an unspoken bond between him and Ayoka, but the tension of her father's decree lingered in every step. Ayoka moved silently beside him, her long dark braids swinging lightly against her shoulder. Though her leg was healed enough for movement, she walked with measured caution. Her eyes, normally defiant, now reflected the moonlight as a quiet determination. "They'll come tonight," she whispered, voice barely audible. "They're men, outsiders. They won't respect the law of the plains." Cole nodded, fingers tightening on the rifle. "I've seen enough men like that. We need a plan." From the shadows, the soft sound of hooves approached. For figures emerged, cloaked in dust and darkness, eyes glinting with the intent of thieves and killers. Cole gestured to Ayoka to stay low. He aimed carefully, each breath measured. "Wait for my shot," he murmured. The first man crested the rise, silhouetted against the moonlight. The rifle barked. A soft thud, a grunt, and he went down. The second man turned, pistols drawn, but Cole's aim did not falter. The night erupted with the sound of gunfire, echoes bouncing across the plains. Ayoka moved with agility that surprised even Cole, ducking behind a wall and rolling a fallen log to block a pursuer. Despite her youth, she handled herself with the instinct of survival, her courage igniting a fierce respect in him. The last man, realizing the tide had turned, made a desperate charge. Cole met him mid-path, rifle swinging, knocking the pistol from his hand, and pinned him to the ground. "Enough," he growled. The man nodded, terror in his eyes, then scrambled away into the darkness. Breathing heavily, Cole turned to Ayoka. "You're tougher than most men I've met," he said, genuine admiration in his tone. She smiled faintly, her dark eyes reflecting relief and pride. "I had a teacher once, survival was always a lesson," she said, the word soft but meaningful. The village remained quiet, but the tension lingered. Every shadow now seemed charged, every distant noise a potential threat. Cole and Ayoka moved to secure the village perimeter, ensuring no further intruders remained. In the darkness, under the watchful moon, trust between them had solidified, an unspoken alliance forged in fire and danger. Yet the larger challenge loomed. Chief Takota's presence and the cultural weight of his demand for Cole to marry Ayoka remained a shadow over every breath they took. Survival was only the first step. The path forward required courage, negotiation, and an understanding of honor on both sides. The moon rose higher, casting silver light over the plains. Cole's thoughts drifted briefly to the days past, the bear trap, the river crossing, the first confrontation with the chief, and he realized that every step, every act of bravery, had led them to this moment. The night was far from over, and danger could come from anywhere, but he felt a grim confidence. Together, they could face whatever the frontier demanded. The first light of dawn spilled over the village, painting the wooden huts in pale gold. The events of the night hung heavy in the air, a tense silence broken only by the soft rustle of wind through the sagebrush. Cole stood near the central fire, rifle resting against his shoulder, eyes still scanning the horizon. Beside him, Ayoka adjusted her skirt, braid falling over one shoulder, the firelight highlighting determination in her 23-year-old features. Chief Takota emerged from his hut, broad-shouldered and imposing at 48, hair streaked with gray, his eyes cold but thoughtful. "You survived the night," he said, voice low, carrying both authority and curiosity. Cole met his gaze steadily. "We did. The village is safe." The chief's eyes flicked to Ayoka. "And my daughter? She is unharmed," Cole said, "and capable, stronger than most I've known." Ayoka stepped forward, shoulders squared, voice firm yet respectful. Father, I am alive because of Cole, but my life is mine. I respect your laws, yet I must decide my path. The chief's gaze softened for a moment, as if weighing her words, before returning to authority. Life dead is serious. You have proven honor, courage, and respect. Perhaps your choice can honor the law without breaking the spirit of it. Cole felt tension ease slightly, but knew the negotiation was far from over. Whatever your decision, Chief, I will respect it. But Ayoka's what matters most. The chief's eyes lingered on the two of them, the weight of centuries of tradition pressing down, yet the spark of understanding flickered. Finally, he nodded. Very well. Your actions and her choice will guide the way. I see courage in both of you. Ayoka's expression softened, relief and pride mingling with exhaustion from the trials of the past days. Cole's steel gray eyes met hers, the unspoken acknowledgement of trust, shared danger, and mutual respect hanging between them. The village began to stir, the first light illuminating the path forward. The trials, the bear trap, the river, the bandits, the ambush, and now this test of honor, had not broken them but forged them. They had earned survival, respect, and a fragile, unspoken bond stronger than fear or obligation. As the sun climbed, Cole and Ayoka mounted their horses, side by side, moving toward the open plains. Chief Takota watched, a faint nod acknowledging both respect and acceptance. The frontier stretched endlessly before them, a land of challenges, beauty, and danger, but also, perhaps, new beginnings. Cole adjusted his hat, eyes scanning the horizon as wind swept across the plains. Beside him, Ayoka's braid danced in the sunlight, the strength and fire of her spirit unmistakable. The journey ahead would test them further, but together they had faced death, danger, and the weight of honor, and survived. Cole exhaled, a quiet thought crossing his mind. The frontier isn't just land, he said softly. It's a test of will, of courage, and sometimes of trust. Ayoka glanced at him, a faint smile touching her lips. And sometimes, she said, it teaches us who we really are. The sun rose fully, spilling light across the endless plains. Dust swirled in gold and shadow. The wind whispered through the grass, and the story of survival, respect, and fragile beginnings carried forward, a testament to courage, choice, and the unpredictable path of life on the frontier.